What's going on, everybody? Let's give it some time for people to step in. Let's give it a minute, let people get up in here, and then we will get started. Sam bueno. Sam bueno. That's Spanish for good. Yeah, we are, salutations, my friends. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. It is Sunday, 5 p.m., and we are going to be talking about paranormal things, supernatural things, maybe even some of the occult, right? Yep. We're going to be talking about a couple things and trying to do something different over here where we actually engage with our TikTok audience, to where we get feedback from them. They see what we've done. They share their stories, and I share some of my stories, and we just have like a cool conversation about everything weird, everything strange, everything anomalous. You know, things like this, man. Yeah, I've got Echoes of the Damned by Call of Duty bringing us in from zombies. Got to set the tone. It's not creepy, but, you know, it's the right kind of energy. And so I've got several stories set aside for our audience today. I'm actually genuinely excited to get into some of these because what's going on, Jay DeSanto? What's going on, bro? You're more than welcome to come up and join and drop a story if you would like. Drop a story, tell us your experience with the paranormal or the occult, the supernatural, if you've had like a weird encounter. That's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be sharing paranormal stories, supernatural stories, weird things that have happened to you. You know, maybe you're the type that has summoned UFOs telepathically, right? Maybe you know somebody that played with a Ouija board and may have had a weird encounter. What's going on, Butthole Ice Cream? Yeah, bro, please do subscribe to the Substack. I'm glad to have you here, bro. We're going to be doing the Paranormal Perspective. Try to do it every 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Every Sunday, but if it picks up more steam, we'll do it every single day. I've got no problem with that. But please do, my friend, please subscribe to the Substack. It's freedomfaction.substack.com. I wish I had like a little chat interface over here where I could drop it, but freedomfaction.substack.com, that's the best way to get access to it. You get the stream that we did the other day where we were talking about worm nights, electro nights, ancient directed energy weapons, right? The electromagnetic apparatus that we were discussing as well. You can find that whole research over at freedomfaction.substack.com. We posted a promo for it over here on our pages, but if you want to get the full experience, go check it out. And we're working on like a whole series over there where we just start digging into, you know, architecture, medieval mysteries, some of the strange depictions and things over there. Yeah, please do, my friend. Please do. Very, very glad to have you. It is Sunday, and we're going to be talking about paranormal things. I've got at least, let's be conservative here. We've got about 10 stories that we've set aside that are all user generated, or at least user submitted. And I'm hoping that in the time of us reading some of these stories, people come up here, they share some of their stories, and we just have this conversation about the paranormal and the occult, right? So I've got some stuff. Pull up a chair. I've got some stuff. I'm hoping you guys have some stuff. I've had some experiences, and we'll have some discussions and things like that in between, right? Yeah, dude, please do. I got the time. We literally just started, so if you either want to drop your story over here in the, yeah, dude, either send it to me if you can in DMs right now, and I'll try to pull it up over here on my phone or on the computer, and I'll read it. Or if you can, just like drop it into the chat, and I'll read as much of it as I can. But yeah, no, I would love to hear what you've seen. Um, to just to kind of awesome. Please do send it. Yeah, just to tell you, I haven't had. I may have had some experiences with cryptids, like if I search the memories, but my earliest experience, like with a what could be termed as a cryptid type entity, one of my earliest memories is like when we were in South Carolina. We had to at least been like 5, 6, or 7, and we were driving around the dirt roads of Florence, South Carolina. Me and my brother had this like little go kart type deal, and I remember because we were just like on some back roads where it was a dirt road and you can see woods on both sides, and it was my turn to drive, right? And I'm young. I'm like the middle child of 3 boys, and so my older brother was making it like a whole big deal whenever I was driving. I had to be at least, like I said, 5, 6, or 7, and I'm driving this like go kart down a dirt road, and I'm driving. I crash, and we crash into a ditch. But when we get about the ditch, this is the weird part. I see like a glowing pair of red eyes staring directly at me. Right? I'm like freaked out. I'm scared. I'm like confused. What is going on? I scream. I don't even try to like help my brother get the go kart up out of the ditch. I just literally start running for the house that's got to be at least about, a mile or so away. But I was that terrified. And what was so strange is this is like the other weird part of the story. A couple weeks or months like afterwards, there ended up being a massacre in that location of a whole family. And there's some backstory behind that. I'm wondering if I saw like a because it was in the South, right? The South, like South Carolina, I don't think, and I could be wrong. South Carolina might have like a pretty big Sasquatch, um, or one of these type of entity communities. I don't know, but super early, super young, and it was weird, man. It was weird, because it was like, no, it was Mothman. That's what I remember thinking. It was Mothman because I just saw these massive red eyes staring at me like in the woods as I'm like picking myself up from a ditch, and I'm like, what is going on? And the reason I think it was Mothman is because they don't have like a big Bigfoot community over there in South Carolina, but it was like it was something dark. Maybe you're right. Maybe you're right, Butthole Ice Cream. Maybe it was a malevolent spirit because something did happen dramatically to that family. I kid you not. Like, it became like a whole land custody battle between the family to where basically the uncle went into the house with a shotgun and just terminated the entire generation and left the son. And it was just crazy because we were just out there riding go-karts, hanging out, and then crash the car, see something in the woods, freak out, try to run to the house, and then a couple of weeks, months later, that poor boy's entire family had been slaughtered, and it was just like crazy. Crazy. Yes, we have free will, but spirits can influence you if you let them. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I've had a couple of experiences myself, um, independently as well as like collectively with other people, right? And as the show is titled The Paranormal Perspective, I've had all kinds of encounters, whether they be psychedelic, supernatural, occult, esoteric, the divine, right? And these are all what I would consider just different classifications of the strange, the weird, or the phenomenon, so to speak. Butthole Ice Cream says that, Sam, I have some crazy experience, man. I used to be an atheist, but now not so much. Yeah, please, absolutely, my friend. Um, I think I've always had some type of curiosity when it comes to the paranormal, whether that's just like from seeing things. Like I'm a clairsentient. I'm not a clairvoyant. I'm not a clairvoyant. I'm not a clairaudient. I'm a clairsentient. I can feel whenever they're around, but I can't see them and I can't hear them. Right, and these are other senses that people have. And but the only time I think I've ever quote unquote seen a ghost or some type of spirit is like I was in my house 14, 15, 16, and I had like gone into my what's the link? That's the link to that vid, bro. Did you drop it in DMs or did you drop it in here? Ice cream. Let me check right quick. Let me check what you're saying, and then I will get back to telling the story about seeing a entity in my teens. You put it in the chat. All right, righteous. I'm looking. I'm looking. I'm looking. I'm looking. Okay. Okay. I'm not seeing it, but I also am a little slow and on the spectrum, so you're doing your job. I need to do mine. But yeah, just to get that out of the way, yeah, please do DM it. Oh heck yeah. I'm glad you're here, bro. I really am glad you're here, my friend. Thank you for joining. But just to tell you the story, uh 15, 16, 17, um going into the bathroom and I'm splashing water on my face, and I don't see my face whenever I pull up. I see this just like, and I could probably draw it for you, ironically enough. I just see this white dude who's got blue skin, pale face, just like his head is bald, um, and he's just like staring at me. And it was one of those things to where you're just like, what is happening? Like, am I being overshadowed? Am I seeing something else's spirit? Is something trying to come through on this window? And it happened just like that. Like I'm washing my face, pick up, and it's just like, what am I looking at? What am I looking at? And you're not blinking as fast, but you're disoriented, you're confused, and you're like not traumatized or scared or anything to that degree, but it's just it catches you off guard. Heck yeah. I just got the DM butthole ice cream. Man walking his dog, then comes across an alien skinwalker behind trees. It was something to that effect. It was something to that effect, but I didn't see like the full body. I simply saw like the eyes, just glowing red eyes. As I peered into the forest, right? I'm picking myself up from a ditch, dusting myself off, and I'm looking at something over here. And the reason why I'm thinking it's a Mothman or even like some type of shape shifting skinwalker entity is just because of the doom that followed. I'm associating the doom that it brought, the omen that it brought, with the actual entity itself. And so I don't know fully like what I saw. If I did see like if I did see this, or if I had seen a Mothman, or if I had seen like a Sasquatch, or like an even a reptilian type creature, because those type of entities are documented in that area as well. But heck yeah, bro! Thank you for sending this my way. I have never seen this clip. I have never seen this clip. It's crazy. And what it's making me think about is like this one time when we were in Las Cruces, and I don't know if I told the story over here. I'm over here in Las Cruces, hanging out with my buddy. We're drinking, we're having a good time, and me and a couple of buddies were like, "Hey, let's go for a drive." Clearly, we shouldn't have been driving, but it's like what you do out where we were. They said they had a great spot, so it's like, all right, cool, let's go drink, let's go have a good time over here. We drive out to this basically like lot like area down there in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and we're drinking, music's blaring in the car, we're having a good time, right? We're vibing, and then just like I don't know like how it I don't know like who saw it first or what, but we just saw this like dude in the distance. We just saw this like guy kind of walking, and we're like confused because it's like the middle of the night, right? You're like in an open field, basically, jamming music. And so there's a little bit of like unease and caution that begins to set in because you're like, who is this? Where did this person come from? We thought we were alone. What's happened? You got like four boys that are just like intoxicated, and now somebody's like off in the distance, begun to enter the scene. And so like we turn the music down a little bit, and it's weird. Like he didn't come to us. He didn't come to us. It's just like we could see him in the distance, or we could see like the outline or the silhouette of a person or a thing like in the distance, and it was just a weird howl or some type of like I don't know how to describe like the sound. There's just like a like it's crazy because I'm like looking at this video, and I know like part of me is wondering like if this is AI, but I'm also saying like this is somewhat what happens. Like you see the shapeshifter. Some of it is quick, some of it is painful, some of it is something else. But we heard just like this like screech cry thing come out from this dude that just like walked up on the scene all of a sudden. We're like, what the heck is this? And then he disappears. It's like you see, like I'm trying to describe like seeing him shapeshift, but like not shapeshift. 1 minute he's there, you hear like a howl and a screech, and then like the silhouette has disappeared. That begins to terrify the Jesus out of us. And so, we close the doors, we jump up in the car, we drive away, we are just like tripping at this point. And we didn't hear anybody, we didn't hear anything. But it's just like the panic set in very, very quickly. The panic set in to where you're just like, what? Are we all drunk? Like we're not on mushrooms, we're not on like psychedelics, like we're not tripping, bro. We're just drinking. What is this thing? And then the panic sets in, and you just kind of run. That's literally like what happened. What I remember happening next. It's just like we were all sitting here, we're all drinking, we're having a good time. Somebody pulls up out of nowhere, and then he just like starts making wild sounds, disappears, and we're like, yo, we're not trying to figure out what the fuck that is. Okay, let's get the hell out of here. And so then we do. And it wasn't like a type of story where, oh, this thing chased us. Oh, this thing jumped on top of the roof. It's just like we saw something that was anomalous, something that appeared to us as if it was human. And then, it made some strange non-human sounds. And we were like, yo, let's go back to the party. I'm getting out of here. I'm not down. And that's basically what I would term as a skinwalker. I don't know, but it was something that was very strange. And it was me and my buddy. I don't want to say his name because he might have like an account over here for business purposes, but his name is K. We got A, and we got I forget the other guy's name, but I got the homie that invited me down there, and then I've got two of his other homies that he was going to school with while he was down there, and we all experienced this in the back of a car. Like we're all just popping shots, hanging out in the desert as you would, and then just something came to us, right? Butthole Ice Cream asks, where were you? Like in the mountains? We were in Las Cruces, New Mexico. It's I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's about maybe 3 or 4 hours south of me right now. It's a big college town, and my homie was going to college. Yeah, bro, it was the desert. That's why we were like, what is this? Precisely. It was the desert. That's why we were like, let's, we don't, if it's a coyote, you could scare that off. It's not going to come to you. Um, but I'm trying to tell you, like, it was a humanoid shape. And I think like what I'm trying to describe is just like the mannerisms that it had in that time frame of just like our sight to the shape shifting or whatever the heck you would want to call that to where we're at now or where we were at before we left. It was just like so sudden, so crazy that it killed the buzz, killed the whole vibe, and made us get the heck out of there. And in hindsight, that definitely sounds very territorial if you think about it. In hindsight, that definitely sounds like a very territorial spirit because it didn't display fear. It wasn't like, oh, yeah, it was not good. It was not good. Yeah, New Mexico, we have we have a big Native American community out here, and so there is a lot of skinwalkers, a lot of we have Mexicans, we have Native Americans, we have the Spanish, we have lots of different people who have deep spiritual roots, so to speak. And so you'll have people that practice brujeria, um, that are brujas, witches. You'll have people that are curanderas. You'll have people that are witch doctors or shamans or even spiritual practitioners of some kind. And then when you get into that, you start talking about just all of the different amalgamations of spirituality that are out there and how our generation is kind of mixing all of them together. That bit sounded maniacal. A death cult? Well, cartel? Well, I have had some. I've not had paranormal encounters with the cartel, but I've had encounters with the cartel, or at least associates with the cartel. Is it a death cult? There are known Satanists. There are known occultists. There are known. I mean, we're out here in New Mexico. Jeffrey Epstein's right up the street in Santa Fe. He's about 45 minutes that way. And so we've got a lot of people from Hollywood just migrating here. So there's a lot of that type of community and culture here. Hey, my boy associates with the cartel, with some people, with some folk. Love to hear it. Ice cream. I hope you're getting yours, and be safe. But yeah, no, there is a lot of intersections of different types of spirituality whenever it comes to what's going on in New Mexico, right? Like one of the there's people that do crystal magic, there's people that do ancient magic, necromancy. It's like I was at the pool the other day, hot tub specifically, and it was me and my wife and this girl and her boy, and we were just chilling talking, and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna go see like some movies like right after this. This is what we're doing." And they were talking about Witches was the movie and some other movie as well. And I was like, "Oh man, I'm a huge movie buff. Let's get into it." Some of these movies are actually public rituals, and so we started talking about Wicker Man and Burning Man. That symbology. Um, uh, what is it? It's like Somerville and a couple other things, right? And then I started picking this chick's brain. And this guy was over here on a date with this girl, and uh, one thing led to another. I got her to admit in front of her boy toy that she's a witch, and she has learned this from her parents and her grandparents. And so we're sitting there, we're in the hot tub. Homie thinks he's, having a good time. And then I'm just pulling information out of this woman, right? He thought that, oh, she was just this goth chick that kind of like dark stuff. And I'm like, no, this is a witch. And I'm all right with that. But you need to know what she's practicing. And so one thing led to another. We started talking about like DMT, ayahuasca, and psychedelics. And she said, in the order of events, that after she had done DMT, that she came back from the spirit realm completely different. And that's what began her interest in necromancy, right? Because she had admitted that her family practiced witchcraft, brujeria, that she was like this pseudo Catholic type thing. And she broke away from the Catholic Church and began to embrace like witchcraft and the occult. And so we're just sitting here broad daylight having a whole conversation about like witchcraft and the occult and DMT, drugs, psychedelics, the spiritual world. And homie's over here sitting with this chick. He had no idea what was going on. And I've got a lot, because there's been a lot of interactions with her ever since, right? Ever since. But what I'm trying to say is like there's this intersection with multiple types of magical disciplines occurring, to where you have people that, you know, are witches, but also new age witches. So they work with like crystals, they work with like necromancy, they work with like throwing bones, they work with like divination. And each one of these things are portals in and of themselves, right? They're all portals within themselves. Like back in the day, we used to talk about seances and, you know, Ouija boards and things like that. What we have to understand is there's like a whole generation that has leveled up past that when encountering or communicating with the paranormal. You see. Yeah, but the real question is, does any of that witchcraft actually work? Well, I'm not entirely. Do Ouija boards even work? Yeah, they do work. Ouija boards do definitely work. Yeah, I've not messed with them. Right. I've talked to people who have messed with them. There are people that communicate with these spirits. Absolutely. And one of the series I'm going to be doing over here on our Substack is about just like I'm curious, like why in like the 1800s, the 1900s, and even in the 1700s, like what was this fascination with seances and the Ouija board, right? As you talk about like the Victorian time period, the repopulation of cities, and this whole push, why was there also this subtle undertaking and curiosity surrounding seances, rituals, the Ouija board, and things like that? So I'm going to be diving into that over on our Substack sometime here soon. We're going to be putting together a series on it. But yeah, no, Ouija boards definitely work. People can get cursed. They're you have to think about it. Like part of it is when we talk to ChatGPT and Grok and DeepSeek and all this, we have no idea where this information comes from. They tell us it comes from a data center and we trust it. Imagine being back in like the 1800s and you're messing with something that is interfacing with you, but at the same time giving you information. You have no idea where it comes from. It's not you. You simply provided a question and now you're receiving information. You're going to want more, right? And we don't ask who's on the other side. We just think it's Grok, ChatGPT, or DeepSeek. It could definitely be many other things. And so in a time frame where we're hyper technical, we're like, heck yeah, let me try it. What about in a time frame where they're low tech and more spiritual and they don't have all these distractions? And so there's a lot of crazy stories with Ouija boards, Dybbuk boxes, seances. And I think what we're also dealing with too, right? If you want to get into it in that way, we're also dealing with the fallout of people who opened some of those portals but didn't close them in that time period. Ice Cream says, Joe, it's funny that you're saying that. There's a video on YouTube of a guy making AI cry and make demonic noises. Interesting. That's interesting. I'm one of those. I'm one of those type that definitely believe that AI is demonic. Yes, yes, Solomon seals, yes, and how some of the seals look like sigils. I've heard of it. Tell me what you've heard of. Butthole ice cream. Tell me what you've heard of because I've been wanting to get into this because I definitely think it is something that, yes, it has to do with the AI being demonic. You know, while you type that, please tell me more. Yes, it's tied together with sigils. Yes, Solomon seals, the energy, the AI infrastructure that we have, not necessarily even being AI, but just being Legion. Yeah, go ahead, find that video. I was doing a stream the other day on our TikTok, and I was talking about like worm nights, electro nights, and I have some of these graphics here that I could pull up on the show. But I was describing how things like rapiers and swords were like electric conductivity devices, right? And the reason I'm saying that is because, well, if you're controlling these demons who are locked inside of these sigils, you're going to need some type of device to direct and command them. And they probably would be ceremonial or ritualistic whenever you are dipping into the ether, using these devices, commanding these spirits, and reciting certain things. I think you might be onto something, bro. But no, I've definitely been seeing a couple posts like that where they talk about the seals of Solomon. They show you the sigils, they show you like their designs, their intricacy, and then they show you like from the Galatia or the demonic like library basically what their actual sign is. Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. I definitely think it's something that warrants more attention. And again, just as a quick little housekeeping, because if you can believe it, we are already about 30 minutes or so into the stream. We are just talking about the paranormal, having a conversation about everything that is strange, weird, anomalous, occult, esoteric. I've got some stories pulled aside over here that I can read to you guys. Things about lucid dreaming, children's encounters, silence before encounters, luminous objects, right? We've got several stories that have been submitted to us and other stories that we're reviving that we will be getting into in a little bit. Right now, we're just kind of shooting the breeze with Butthole Ice Cream, hoping that more people come through and just share some of their stories. But this is just the format that we have right now. We're going to be here for the next hour and a half or so, just talking about everything we've discussed so far. We're going to try to switch things up every now and then. I was wondering if I can play like a video or something. That would be nice. But I don't think I can, so that's all right. But we'll keep it going. We will keep it going. Yeah, I have a deep fascination with everything that is strange, everything that is weird, because I think that they are not even side effects of some of the things that we have going on in the world, but I think they are features of this world that we have purposely drowned ourselves out from or disconnected from. This is one of the reasons why I talk so much about psychic things, people coming online, superpowers, right? Because these are features of humanity. These are features that we have built into us. They're not defects. They're not bugs that need to be fixed. They're features that need to be improved. You see? And like muscles, they need to be exercised. And there's a reason why they've told us that You have no power, you have no strength, you have nothing here. They are intentionally trying to disrupt and destroy you, right? So there's a reason why you have these powers, because there is something trying to reach out and interface with us. Let me, boom, there we go. That's better. I like that layout better. I like this layout better because whenever I rip this and I put it up over here to YouTube or wherever we place this, Substack and our streams, if it doesn't look like this with the full body, it'll look all weird whenever we upload it. But yeah, I like this. And I'll disappear too whenever people decide to come up and tell their stories, so we can have a cool little banner in the background. But yeah, we've got a lot of different things planned for you guys. We have been seeing some nice growth on the page these past couple days, and I've just been trying to respond to it with equal effort and more. But we'll do a little bit of a low-key moment, a pared down moment where we just let everything chill, let some folks come in, let Butthole Ice Cream find that video, and then, we'll tell a couple stories, man. And my DMs are open. If you guys have some stories you want me to tell, feel free just to drop them there. And we can either do them on live, or I'll do them on the page and tag you. So get comfortable. Get comfortable and understand that, good Lord willing, we're not going to go anywhere, because I'm still learning how to talk over here on TikTok, like what I can and cannot say. I'm still learning that. But I've got many different things to talk about, as you can tell, from experiences to things that I've researched to investigations I've conducted. Oh, awesome. He's found it. Most righteous. Yeah, bro, drop it in my DMs, please do. But many different things I've talked about, or many different things that I've experienced. And I know I'm not alone, too, right? There is I think as the veil is getting lifted, more and more people are having experiences. It's like I was watching this clip from this show called Grimm. It's great. But in it, the character can see the monsters masquerading as human. And whenever they switch, whenever they display themselves, it's called going vogue. Vogue. WOGE. And what that's called these days is demon face syndrome. I'm going to do like a whole little post on that, because it's not a syndrome. The veil is lifting. People's abilities are coming online. They can see. Butthole Ice Cream asks, dude, what about the effing butterfly effect and CERN? I know the fruit of the loom had the cornucopia growing up. Yeah, bro, same here. I don't know if you saw, but I just put this on our TikTok page and Instagram page. But literally last week, you want to talk about synchronicities and butterfly effect. My wife is cleaning the house, as she is right now. I'm over here on the computer. And she says, hey, guess what? I found one of your watches. It's this watch right here. I changed the time already. I messed up. I should have just saved this for this week. But it was this watch that she found. And it's still a day off. You can see that. It thinks it's Sunday the 3rd. It thinks it's Sunday, August 3rd. And so when I grabbed this watch and I put it on my page, you guys can go see it. I think I've got it over here in the screenshot. I have no idea why it's ahead. No idea. It was a day and like an hour and a half ahead. And I'm like, I didn't touch this, you didn't touch this, you're finding it like in a box somewhere. Are we like ahead a day? Are we behind a day? Like, what is this? And I discovered it, I think, July 26th, July 27th. I made a post about it, and CERN shut down. I thought it shut down at the end of July, but apparently it shut down at the end of June. And so I've got no idea why it's ahead. And I've changed like the time on it because I can't figure out how to change the date. But you can see it right here. It thinks it's August the 3rd, Sunday. So when we're talking about like timelines, we're talking about like discrepancies, time warps, time leaps. How would we even recognize it? The whole CERN thing is weirding you out. I've one of the other notes that I have right here. I'll show you this crappy written up paper. These are some of the notes I have for either a future show or a future video talking about timelines, artificial timelines, spiritual timelines, real timelines. I sometimes start thinking that my parents have changed, and who is to say that their entire personalities can't be changed? I've got a couple theories on that. Some of them being biochemical, but when looking at it through like the CERN context, it's like, bro, I thought it's weird. Like I thought last year, sometime around like November, December, September, October, November, December, that like last 4 months of last year, I felt like something in me and the world died. And we collapsed into a different timeline. And for the first like 3-4 months of this year, it was like I was in this like miasmic, crazy mindset to where it's like I couldn't focus. Like I could not lock in, bro. I don't know how to describe it. And it's only in March, April of that time frame that I slowly started to just like come back into awareness. And I don't know how else to describe it. It's like a part of me either collapsed, merged, disappeared, or something, because it's a weird anomalous mindset to describe. Yeah, I felt the change, but don't know exactly precisely. Precisely. Well, that would be the perfect time to kind of update humanity. Butthole Ice Cream says, I wonder if it happens while we are sleeping. I think part of it happens to us, and I think part of it happens to the environment as well. Like I remember I would tell people that with CERN doing its experiments, there's an energetic exchange, right? When these people are smashing particles and doing things like that and reaching into other dimensions and pulling stuff out, where they're going to bring back things, but there's also going to create like a reverberation effect to where our realm has to acclimate to this new form of energy. And that energetic exchange, us reaching in there and pulling stuff back, has consequences. And I think that's why we were seeing some of the strange and anomalous weather that we were seeing these past couple of years. Like thunderstorms, floods, earthquakes, just like landslides. You can attribute some of that to chemtrails and geoengineering, but I'm attributing it to a larger phenomenon, them jacking with and messing with the actual fabric of our world, causing these type of destabilizing events. So when you say or ask the question, I wonder if it happens while we're sleeping, I do believe some of it is that, because some of it is like a spiritual pouring, like a download that has to happen to us. But there's also like a environmental or realm-wide event or thing that takes place that affects us, right? Because it's twofold, and we are connected to the planet. So I think some of it does happen while we're sleeping. And this is one of the newer theories I see coming out talking about this, and I'm glad we're talking about it, is quantum immortality. Have you heard anything about that, Butthole Ice Cream? Quantum immortality? He says that global warming is definitely a hoax, but I do believe in global cooling. It's just cyclical, but they won't tell us that. People will find out way too late about the solar minimum and maximum. Yeah, I think it's so weird. It is. It's. I wish I could pin some of these comments, bro. Can I? I can't pin that. Or anyway, that's the Catherine Austin Fitts, who worked for the Housing Under Development Department underneath the Bush administration, talks about some of the work she's done with the Solari report, where they've been able to find out that there are over 170 different deep underground military bases that the U.S. government has siphoned off money to. And this is something we've been tracking on the show for almost like 2 or 3 years. I mean, we had an awareness of like what the deep underground military bases were and stuff like that. There's a point to this. I'm getting to it. And then you saw Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner come out and talk about their resort that they're turning into an underground base as well. Donald Trump has his 6 stories high or 6 stories deep military base under the ballroom that he's trying to get through. And the reason why I'm pointing out all of these different bases that are being built, Peter Thiel going down to Argentina, because it is exactly what Butthole Ice Cream is saying. It's not global warming. We're going into a cooling period. And it is cyclical, right? And that's what you see them preparing for. For like, this is what Catherine Austin Fitts calls the geophysical event. This is why Elon Musk wants to go to space, and you're seeing some people go underground. And Elon Musk, that's up there in space too, also has a boring company that can go even further down. And so what we're talking about are the elites withdrawing themselves from society, not because of societal collapse, but because of these cyclical catastrophes that we're about to go into, right? People are saying that it's going to start really popping off around like 2040 or so because of just things escalating, right? So I don't think it's global warming or climate change or any of that type of stuff. I think that it is like a cyclical event, and we're coming up on one of those time periods where not that that will be wiped out, but that we're going to go through this. We're going to go through this too. And I think some of their plans too include for the creation of domed enclosures, domed cities, right? Because some of these places will be uninhabitable. These zones will be uninhabitable, but they'll still have to try to take care of humanity. And so they'll have domed enclosures. This is what the smart cities will be doing. This is like a foundation. Some people are even saying too that these deep underground military bases are directly underneath all these data centers, right? And so what I'm simply trying to talk about is how, like, you can even look at things like Project Nanook, right? This is a project they did back in like the 50s, where I think they flew out to either Antarctica or Alaska, and they were examining some of these soil samples there, and they found like traces of mammoths and like all of this ancient stuff. And while they were there, they said, okay, cool, this is going to happen again. This is going to happen again. That's what the scientists had ascertained with their research. And I'll do a post about this. Project Nanook, Nanook, back in like the 50s, I think, the 50s or the 60s, where they did these studies and they realized that, hey, Earth goes through these cyclical events, these cyclical catastrophes. And what you've been seeing them do is just get prepared for it and come up with cover story after cover story as they siphon off more and more resources of mainstream society. This is the breakaway civilization. Sorry, let me get caught up on some of these comments. I went on a bit of a jag there. Al Gore has been talking. Yeah, bro, he's been talking about rising sea levels since the '90s. Yeah, Obama too, bro. Him too. He was another one that was like, "Oh my gosh, climate change." But I'm gonna buy like a multi-million-dollar mansion over here near the beach. It's like, bro, what? What are you talking about? Yeah, the whole global running. Yeah, it is. It is a money grift to siphon off these resources to build this breakaway civilization. Like I made a post about this, I think, in our story, but I'm quickly coming to a thought process that it is multiple warring factions against one another at this point. That you could say it's the 13 bloodlines, it's, families type thing, but we don't really know who's in control of the game right now. That is and is not good because they're all fighting for power and they don't know who's going to tell the narrative of the future. But whenever there's a declared winner, they're going to do something to wipe it all out and restart the game. And they don't have much time to assert dominance and power. And we're collateral as this whole thing gets built up. Yeah, it's for sure a money grift. It is for sure a money grift. And it basically started in 2025 and ends in 2097. They're sending all the good produce and meats to their dumb bases in cities. Absolutely. That's why we are being poisoned and being used as slaves to gather resources. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Very well put, butthole ice cream. Like it's like how do it's hard not to it is hard not to assume that we're dealing with reptilian type entities or even just like psychopathic demonic entities that see humans as a resource to be squeezed and extracted from. Because I mean, would that not be what a reptilian or an alien species or just something that doesn't see humans as beautiful or strong or dynamic? You see us as a resource. Yeah, but you are absolutely correct. They are. It's like I did a post. Excuse me. I did a post on our on our socials because I saw this Kit Kat heist that happened earlier this year. It's like millions of Kit Kats stolen in broad daylight, and I said that is so anomalous and weird. Where are you going to hide a million Kit Kats? And right at the time frame, Donald Trump had just started talking about his ballroom and stuff like that, and it made me have like a moment where I was like, they took those Kit Kats to the deep underground military bases and they stole it in broad daylight to say, we don't care what you guys think. We're snatching resources live time. And that's why we're seeing some of the stuff that we're seeing politically because it's all just cannon fodder. It's all just talk while they secure more and more resources for the underground community that they're a part of. But that's just the easiest way for me to describe it at this point. I don't see anything else. They're telling you that they're going to go to space, right? That they're going to go to space, they're going to go to Mars, they're going to go to the moon. I don't believe any of that crap. I think they're going to dig themselves deep into the ground, as it says in the Bible, and they're going to turn these bases into coffins. Because the same way that we talk about these cyclical destructions, an earthquake, all it takes, God sees you. So these people trying to do everything they're doing, treating us like slaves, dehumanizing us, destroying us, depopulating us, sequestering resources just to disappear underground and thinking they're going to get away with it. They're not. We see them, and more importantly, God sees them. And so they have a divine cosmic judgment awaiting them. We just have to keep doing the work. That's how I see it. That's how I see it. They treat us like this, but trust me, the good Lord above will get them. It is definitely the reptile shit. Yeah, bro. I've seen so much evidence for that shit. Have you seen the video of the nightclub lights going out and the human eyes were glowing? Obviously, he wasn't human. I've not heard of the Kyle Odom story. See, this is why we have these conversations, butthole. I've not heard of the Kyle Odom story. I'm going to look into that. Maybe even make a post about it. Write that down. Kyle Odom. See, this is why we have these conversations. Please send me what you have on Kyle Odom, and then let's get into reptilians and things like that. Space doesn't exist. Werner von Braun's tombstone says the firmament showeth God's handiwork. You're not wrong. And see, then we get this crossover too, where we're talking about occult sciences, what I call Luciferian, satanic scientists, occult technicians, Luciferian engineers, and techno priests. Just this like whole range of people, like Werner von Braun, like Jack Parsons, like the Aleister Crowleys, people that kind of have this like dual discipline thing going on. Publicly, they're like a scientist, but privately, they're like an occultist. Werner von Braun's one of those type of individuals. And so when we're talking about this like intersection and crossover of like the science and the mysticism, he himself said that, hey, we did not design these crafts. We had a little help. We had a little help. And he's alluding to the fact that, no, we were doing occult workings. We were communicating with otherworldly spirits. They were feeding us information. Because you're right, bro. Space does not exist. I was a glober, is what they're called these days. I was a glober a couple years ago, like maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. And just over time, I've just gradually introduced this whole new thing. And I see it all over the place these days. But no, I'm for sure a flat earther because it's biblical, right? And we can't get through the firmament or the Van Allen radiation belt, right? And they've done projects about this. I think I actually have one of these little graphs right here. I'm glad you talked about this. Some of the projects and operations they've run. Yep, right here from 1946 all the way to 1969, where they were basically, figuring out the ice wall and figuring out the firmament. He said, Butthole Ice Cream says, I sent it to you, the Kyle Odom videos. I think you're going to love it. Yeah, let's, you want to watch it right now? Yeah, let's do it right now. Let me see if I can pull it up.
The bright young college student who one day snapped and shot 6 hollow point rounds into a pastor he believed was a reptilian. Now, what makes this story even stranger is the fact that the pastor came out of this relatively unharmed, returned to work 2 weeks later, and then was elected to a prominent government position, even though he was shot 5 times in the torso and once in the head with hollow point rounds.
There we go.
So let's start to unpack why Kyle thought it was necessary to pull off this heinous crime to begin with. The answer to this question lies in his manifesto, which can be found on the Internet Archive. But let's start with, who is Kyle Odom? Born and raised in North Idaho, he grew up in a loving family. He joined the Marine Corps after high school and developed an interest in science. He went to school for a degree in biochemistry. He won numerous scholarships and awards. He graduated magna cum laude, then joined the University of Idaho. So why would he do this? Why would he throw his life away when he had so much to live for? Well, according to him, his life was ruined. It was ruined by an intelligent species of amphibian humanoids from Mars. I wish I was joking. So here are the bullet points that Odom wants people to know about these amphibian humanoids. Basically, they were here long before we ever existed. Their technology is millions of years more advanced than ours, and he's seen them do things that defy all comprehension. They have a massive breeding stock of humans, which they breed and control from birth. They use these humans to live vicarious lives among us. They appear to be completely normal because they're good at imitating human behavior. Now, the actual Martians live deep underground here and inside of the moon. They take control of wild human beings and use them as sex slaves. Don't believe me, he says? We'll ask Obama to take a lie detector test on this one. He says they tried to take me, but they were unable to control my mind, and they've been following me ever since. I tried everything to get my life back. I begged, bargained, and I threatened. I attempted suicide twice, but they stopped me both times. My last resort was to take actions that would bring this to the public's attention. So everything started for Kyle when he was at the University of Idaho in the spring of 2014.
Okay.
It was the final semester, and he was taking a heavy course load. The stress was mounting. So Kyle searched for a way to cope, and what he discovered was meditation. He made it his daily routine, and he got really good at it. Now this continued until he encountered another being through meditation. Essentially, he went into another realm, and this entity telepathically told him, "You shouldn't be here." Instantly, Kyle felt guilty for trespassing into this psychedelic realm, and this emotion he had a positive impact on this being, who then considered Kyle to be a good guy, and I guess they merged, and he felt unconditional love. Their minds became connected, and it was an extremely powerful and life-altering experience. Now, the rest of that semester suddenly became exceedingly easy for Kyle. He felt like he had tapped into some kind of power. He exerted no mental effort, aced all of his tests, and did amazing, even in classes that were extremely difficult before. So after he graduated college, he started to interview for graduate school, and he accepted an offer from Baylor College of Medicine to work on a PhD in human genetics. This Kyle was very excited about. Yes. However, everything changed once he started the program. The moment he arrived, he could see flaws in every professor's research. His mind was so expanded that he could instantly understand the implications of entire research projects, and he was able to see the weaknesses in them. Kyle would voice his concerns to his advisors, but they casually would brush him aside. He tried to stay motivated, but he couldn't stop seeing the flaws in the foundations of genetics. So eventually he decided to leave the program. And the day after he decided to leave, his life became a living hell. He couldn't sleep, his mind felt zapped. After a few days of this, 2 graduate students from his class began to reach out to him, and Kyle thought this was strange because they never actually really talked in class. Then when Kyle went to actually hang out with them, they started acting very strange. Unprovoked, they would point their fingers at him in the shape of a gun and go pew pew like they were shooting at him. They kept doing this, and Kyle wondered what their problem was. Later, Kyle writes in his manifesto, he discovered that they actually were not human, and they were tasked with making him the next school shooter. Anyway, Kyle continues, things slowly began to improve after he stopped talking with them, but still was mentally exhausted. However, in spring of 2015, Kyle's luck seemed to turn around, and he was invited to go to an interview with a prominent food company. Unfortunately, however, the interview didn't go very well, and he had to take a plane to get there. So, anyway, on his plane ride back, things took a strange turn. An older gentleman sitting in front of him kept glancing back at him until he got his attention, and as he kept looking back, Kyle's head began to hurt and tingle. Right when this happened, the old gentleman's lips began to curl up into an evil-looking smile. Pain in Kyle's head continued, and got more intense as time went on. Every time Kyle felt it, the man would start taking notes in a notepad. About halfway through the flight, someone else in front of him held up a newspaper that said psychic reading for 5 minutes straight. It was blatantly obvious they were doing something to him, but he didn't know what. Once they landed, the older gentleman kept showing Kyle his track phone as if to say, "Get one of these." Now, Kyle had applied to several government agencies before this happened, so he thought this might be their way of contacting me. Out of curiosity, he decided to go buy a track phone. He would check it every day to see if anyone messaged or called. About a month later, he received a text message from a man named John. He invited him to come to church at the altar. It seemed to be like a strange place to be recruiting for government jobs, but Kyle went anyway. However, after he got there and went inside, something felt very wrong. He felt as if his life was in danger, and became so uncomfortable he had to leave. A couple days later, Kyle started to receive other text messages from someone named Tim at the church. At first they were innocuous Bible messages, but then he started threatening him. He sent messages talking about their power and up.
I just want to pause real quick and make some commentary. Like, we'll for sure continue. Definitely continue. I've not heard this story. I'm just like, I'm wondering, like, this whole merger with these entities, that is very, very interesting to me. Very, very interesting to me, because we know that these people, or these things, can possess people. And as the narrator talked about just right there, you're seeing like obvious accelerated intelligence, augmented intelligence. Is he overshadowed? Is he possessed? Like, what's going on here? No, I feel like I can feel it getting good. I'm just like, what's happening?
Other things. He then sent a final text message which simply said angels. Kyle thought nothing of it until helicopters started flying around his house all day and night. At this point, he knew he was in trouble. He knew he needed to contact them, so he made an appointment to meet John Pella for coffee.
And just that right there, like, is he being triangulated? Are feds? Are there reptilians of the government that are manufacturing this type of experience to push him in a certain direction?
Making the appointment to see John, something very bizarre happened. Kyle started to receive spontaneous, I'm going to say it, erections. It felt like someone was manually forcing him to have these at inappropriate times. And whenever this happened, a song would start playing in his head. And it would repeat the same words over and over again, saying he's just a plaything, we want to make him stay up all night. And according to him, they weren't kidding, because he was not able to sleep at all each and every night. Each time he would drift off, he was woken up violently by the song. So one morning after all of this, Kyle gets out of bed and he's relieved because all of a sudden the song stopped playing. He thought the torture was over. Well, until a voice entered his mind and said, "You're going to be uncomfortable. All you have to do is breathe." While he sat there wondering what this meant, the voice spoke again saying, "You will be sacrificed like Jesus and get beheaded."
Oh my God.
Well, this threw Kyle into a complete panic, and he began to have a mental breakdown. A few minutes later, some man knocked on the door, and when Kyle answered, he gave him a pamphlet talking about the sacrifice of Jesus. This sent him into a complete delirium. Kyle figured he was never going to see his family again. He was going to die. And all he could think about was seeing them again. Now, they lived in Albuquerque at the time, so he decided to buy one-way ticket there. When Kyle reached the Spokane airport, his panic began to subside. Everything was fine until he got on the plane. Kyle sat next to a huge man who kept telling him telepathically that he was going to crash the plane. And every time after he spoke, he would sniff emphatically. Kyle didn't know what to do, so he just sat there as calm as possible. Now this angered the man, and he started touching Kyle's leg. And the second he did, Kyle could feel the man inside of his mind. This caused him to panic until he was on the verge of causing a scene. But before he did anything, the man told him to calm down. He said, "You did a great job. You passed. Go enjoy your family. We have a job waiting for you when you get back." Kyle thanked him and felt slightly relieved, but he had no intention of contacting him at all. His only thought was to get as far away from him as possible. Now, after getting off the plane, Kyle headed to baggage claim, and a huge group of them surrounded him there. Kyle began watching them cautiously, and they all began to sniff at him. Kyle writes, "The sniff is something they do all the time. I think it has something to do with dominance." When Kyle finally got his bag, he left the airport as fast as he could. His parents were right outside waiting to pick him up. He was so happy to see them again. He gave them big hugs and told...
So he's in Albuquerque right now. Like, as he's been picked up, he's in Albuquerque. Let me just read some of this affidavit right now, because like I'm in Albuquerque. That's crazy. I've never heard of this story. I'm loving it. It says, after getting off the plane, I headed to baggage claim. A huge group of them surrounded me there. I watched them continue cautiously. They all began sniffing me. Sniffing has something to do with dominance. When I finally got my bag, I left the airport as fast as I could. My parents were right outside waiting for me to pick it up. I was so happy to see them again. I gave them big hugs and told them how much I loved them. This was my last happy moment in Albuquerque, however. Bro, I'm not even gonna lie. I want to know where in Albuquerque he is. Like, this is fascinating. I've never heard this story. Yeah, for sure. I'm definitely going to. It is the Paranormal Perspective. This is a paranormal story. This is the type of stuff that I would like to. He's in prison. Maybe I'll go visit him in prison, bro. I know that sounds crazy, but like I'll say, hey, brother, like, I'm just now discovering your story. This is absolutely crazy. Are there reptilians in Albuquerque?
Them how much he loved them. However, he writes this was his last happy moment in Albuquerque, because these people followed him everywhere they went. And whenever he saw one, they would sniff at him, just to let him know that it was them. They would also smile, laugh, and stick out their tongues. Now, as time went on, they began coaxing him to go outside alone. Kyle was scared to death that they would kill him, so he refused. Eventually, they threatened to harm his family, which caused him to give in to them. Kyle told them he would do whatever they wanted as long as they left his family alone. They responded by saying, "Go to church." He knew they meant the altar, so he agreed to go once he returned home. So when Kyle went to the altar, the people acted very strange, inhuman. As Kyle walked to the sermon room, everyone stared at him and began sniffing emphatically. Needless to say, he was scared, but still took a seat. When the service began, a man came and sat down next to him. After he sat down, Kyle began smelling something. It was a smell he'd never smelt before, like a reptile and vinegar. After Kyle smelled this, he became very uncomfortable. He tried to remain calm and just sat there quietly until the service was over. When the service ended, they said, "You can leave now." After that whole experience, Kyle knew he wasn't dealing with government anymore. He realized that whoever he was dealing with was extraterrestrial. After this experience was over, Kyle received no further instructions from them, so he began applying for jobs again. Even though he had done exactly what he was told by them, they still followed him everywhere. As time went on, they started harassing him day and night.
Just as that thought, real quick, just as some commentary on, like, yeah, right. What is reptile and vinegar smell like? What is that about? Just as like a quick commentary, he made a comment there, thinking that they are extraterrestrial. I think that is part of the deception that we've been told. I thoroughly believe that these are crypto-terrestrials, if anything, right? These are inner Earth inhabitants, and it's so important that we're over here in Albuquerque now talking about seeing these reptilian type entities, because the native where's the camera? I'm gonna do a thing. Sorry. It's so important that we're talking about this right now because we have the Navajo out here. The Hopi Native Americans have a mythology where they talk about the Ent people rescuing them from cataclysms. It's the Hopi Native American prophecy of the Ent people, where they talk about prior to cataclysm, a fire, or anything crazy like that. The Ent people came from underground, grabbed them, took them back underground while the cataclysm took place, and then brought them back up to the surface world and taught them civilization. This is in the Native American Hopi lore. So to hear that, and it's like Southwest, Four Corners type stuff, you guys get where I'm going with this. There are pockets underground to where these things can navigate, communicate, and do all of this. So I'm on board, man. I'm on board. Let's continue forward.
He began hearing voices more and more often, and he began to hallucinate things that he knew weren't real. They also started playing with him sexually. Both the males and the females would play out their fantasies in his mind. This, of course, came with more random and uncomfortable erections, as well as extreme prostate stimulation. The harassment continued for weeks and intensified as time went on. Kyle did his best to maintain his sanity and avoid them. This worked for a while, but eventually he had a huge meltdown. It was one day he was at the bakery when he was surrounded by a bunch of old men. Some of them looked at him and sniffed, so he knew it was them. They started stimulating his prostate simultaneously, and then they spoke aggressively. They said, "Humans are nothing more than the result of a successful genetic experiment. You are a threat to the way these people think, and you can no longer be free in society. Your life is over. You are nothing but a toy. Your purpose is now to suck their private parts." They continue to say other explicit things, Kyle says, that are too obscene that he doesn't even want to repeat them. But
just as, again, another commentary about being over here in Albuquerque where this is taking place. Like, listen, bro, I got a wife and 2 kids, but there is a massive community of people who are from the LGBTQ plus transformer community. And they are just all over the place. They have no problem dressing up as furries and doing that. The Rainbow Mafia is very heavy here. And, you know, just to this point, and I'll say this and I'll continue the video. I have a friend, a high school friend out here. She's a great artist, but she has this like weird thing. I don't know if you want to call it a kink or whatever, but she has always liked to cosplay a demon. She has always liked to put horns on. She's always liked to hang out near graveyards. She's always really leaned into the gothic aesthetic and like the emo thing, where she's, made herself look like a dead person. Like she's really into that type of stuff. And I'm saying that because I've seen where that was in high school to where it's at now. And I've said this in the past, that I would not be surprised if we have reptilians, shapeshifters, cryptoterrestrials, serpent seed bloodline individuals, what have you. Every race of individual that is coexisting with us would appear at a festival and commingle with us. That is what I think festival culture is. That's what I'm seeing right here with this, using these sexually charged things, right? And how many times have we heard stories too of people who have been in coitus? This is a politically correct way to say intercourse. How many times have we heard about people who were in coitus with what they think of as a human, and then very briefly these entities schism, glitch, or just like spaz out real quick and their tail comes out of nowhere. They can see the reptilian features and they've just been in relations with these entities. And so just to hear that there is a sexual component associated with this and that these entities are located here, I concur and I can understand this entirely. Let's continue.
Before they finished talking, he became enraged. It took every ounce of willpower he had not to kill them. So he left the store and tried to calm down, but it only got worse. The rest of the night, they continued to stimulate him. It got to the point where he was in serious pain. They finally stopped after he broke down and became completely distraught. It was to the point where he couldn't take anymore and attempted suicide. He filled a charcoal grill with lit coals, put it in his car, and rolled up the windows.
Oh my God.
He reclined his seat and went to sleep, and he should have died, but they woke him up in an extreme panic, which caused him to get out of the car. As he slowly regained consciousness, Kyle was very upset to still be alive. He had no clue where to go, so he decided to check himself into the VA. They shipped him straight to the mental ward, but nothing improved. The medication they gave him did nothing. He just sat there surrounded by a bunch of psychotic people, and it was exasperating. He knew their goal was to ruin his life by making him into a crazy person. So he became determined to not let that happen and started fighting back. So after he was let go from the VA, Kyle went back to the altar to ask them what they wanted from him. At this point, Kyle was numb and he wasn't even afraid anymore. So he goes to the altar, he asks what do they want from him, and they respond by saying, "We want you as our sex slave." Wow. Thinking they were serious, Kyle sat there waiting for them to do something. But all they said was, "Keep coming to church." So he did. After a few more services, he found himself talking to Tim, the pastor, face to face. The pastor told Kyle he should become a minister. They were in mid-conversation when suddenly the pastor revealed his true form. He has no clue how he did it, and it only happened for 1 to 2 seconds. But Kyle was able to draw a sketch of what he saw. His eyes really are what stood out and captured his attention. They were huge and bulging. The eyelids were darker green and the irises were yellow and brown with slit pupils. After witnessing this, nothing else happened. Kyle continued to attend the altar for a few more services, waiting for them to do something. They did nothing except tell him to submit and surrender. Kyle had no idea what they meant, so he finally left the church and never went back. After leaving the altar, they finally gave him some breathing room. They held back on their harassment, and Kyle began to recover. Kyle decided to make one final attempt at a normal life by pursuing a career as a pharmacist. He started taking classes at NIC to finish up the prereqs he needed. He also started volunteering at a local pharmacy. Unfortunately, though, they followed him to school. There were several of them in every class he took. They made it impossible for Kyle to study, and they continually harassed him, especially while taking tests. But even with everything going on, he still managed to get an A-, an A and P during the fall semester. Sadly, though, this success was short-lived. The pressure in spring semester was far too intense. Every time he went to class, they started manipulating his brain until he got into a blind rage. They would flood his body with adrenaline. The females would stimulate his penis, and the males would stimulate his prostate. Kyle wrote this was incredibly exhausting. Every moment he spent in the classroom was absolute torture. The classes were already extremely difficult without all of this added pressure. Kyle concluded that his chance for a normal life was ruined. That he was too smart for his own good, so these entities decided to remove him from society. They were worried that he might change the way other people think, which could lead to problems. Problems in the form of scientific revolutions. If we get much smarter as a species, we are going to become a threat to their existence. Kyle writes that if you were to talk to him in person, you could see that he's not crazy at all. The Martians are just so good at hiding in plain sight that no one would know they exist unless they reveal themselves. They are able to fool...
All right, pause right there. Again, I don't think that they're Martians. This is a part of their deception, right? It's a part of their deceptions. It's a part of their trickery. It's a part of them getting you to look up instead of down. I think that's very, very interesting. We're going to continue this because I'm reading ahead right here. It's talking about like wild humans and people that are controlled from birth by the, quote, Martians. Again, I don't think that they're Martians. I think that they're the crypto-terrestrials, the inner Earth inhabitants. I think that these are people or entities that have been here alongside us for quite some time, and it's wild too because just the other week, just the other week, they came out and said that we have been in contact with 4 types of entities: the reptilians, the mantis, the Nordics, and the Greys. And so there is a deep history of not necessarily commingling or commiserating with the reptilians, but that these entities are here. And I have to underscore that they're not Martians. They don't come from Mars. This is the same way that they can come up with star charts. They can tell you all this different type of stuff, but I don't think that they are those inhabitants. Butthole Ice Cream says, have you heard of Nos Confunden? Have you seen these maps? There's a possibility that Mars is an outer land, in quote, outer space beyond the ice walls. I think the aliens said they are from Mars. I have seen I'm glad that you're bringing up the map phenomenon. That is not something I've looked into it. I've researched it. I've heard about it, but I haven't posted about it. And I haven't written articles on Substack about it, but I definitely think that that's going to be something we look into whenever we start doing more dives into the old world, old architecture, and just everything that history, basically, right? Because I think you're right. I think some of these maps are crazy, but again, we don't know the true shape of the planet. I've seen some of the maps too that are like reflections of the moon as well, right? To where it's like to where the moon is just like a reflection of the Earth. And you can see all this different kind of stuff. So, I've seen some of the maps, but I have not done a solid theory-defining statement yet. Jump. Chris says that it's flat. Yes, absolutely, my friend. Thank you for joining. If you have any, we're talking about paranormal stories right now. We've got Kyle Odom's story on about being stalked by reptilians, and I just paused it very briefly to interject. But we're sharing paranormal stories, supernatural encounters, experiences with the divine, and things like this. And Butthole Ice Cream shared this gem of a story that I had not heard about regarding Kyle Odom, reptilians, and things like that. Yeah, bro, here, I'll send you the invite. You're more than welcome to join. Let me play a little bit more of this, and then we'll have you on.
Well, so well that what he's saying sounds impossible. However, they are 100% real. Realize their technology is millions of years more advanced than ours. And think about that. Think about the advancement we've made in the last 100 years. Once you've done that, try to imagine what millions of years of technology would look like. Kyle then writes the president is well aware of them, which is why he wrote him a personal letter, and he hopes he does something about it. And that what Kyle did was his last resort to take action to bring this to the public's attention. And just to make things very clear, Tim and John in this story were not wild human beings. Wild humans are normal people like you and I, and Tim and John had minds who were controlled from birth by the Martians. He wants people to know that the pastor he believed he killed is not who we think. He says it's hard to imagine, I know, nonetheless it's all true. Why would I give up a career as a pharmacist to do this? He says that he's actually left out many details from his story, but he wanted to write down the most critical events in order to make it coherent. And he says if you want to know more, like how I discovered there are multiple species of them, feel free to write to me. And he actually is still serving out his prison sentence, somewhere in Idaho, I believe. In his manifesto, he also has a Q&A. One of the questions is, how do you know about their technology? He says, I've seen them use it, and they have talked to me about it. This was how I learned about their breeding stock of remote control humans. Physically, their humans are no different than us. They just lack a mind of their own. Why would they tell you so much? They value me because I'm smart.
That's crazy. That's crazy. He basically described the NPCs that we are now seeing these days, to where it's like these people are, the lights are on, but nobody's home.
They were also very confident they could take control of my mind. Turns out they couldn't. Anyway, in the interim, some of us developed a personal relationship. They are very arrogant, so they told me much more than they should have. This allowed me to understand some of the things they can do. What else have you seen? I've seen them make things appear out of nowhere. One time I was sitting on a couch and a dollar bill appeared on my lap. Another time while driving, they made a paper bag appear in my passenger seat. They used random, unsuspecting items so no one would think anything of it. I was alone both times this happened. I'm pretty sure they can pop in and out of this dimension based on other things I've seen.
Interesting.
I'm also pretty sure they can overlap our reality with an alternate dimension. I say this because I have gone into stores where I know the employees, and suddenly there are all new employees who I've never seen before. Kyle has another section in the manifesto labeled Martian Brain and Behavior. He says, I've observed their behavior for almost a year now. Consequently, I've been able to make several deductions about them. The first deduction is based on their primary characteristics, which include they are hypersexual, hyperaggressive, and they are fearful and paranoid. In the human brain, the amygdala is responsible for all these characteristics. Therefore, Martians must have an analogous structure, and it must be greatly enlarged. The males are extremely aggressive. In their society, there's only one thing, and that is power. Whoever is the smartest, biggest, and strongest wins. He also goes on to talk about the origins of humanity, some stuff about the Martian tech.
Let me just jump back up over here. This is very interesting. I like that we're getting. I'm going to have to go look into his manifesto and definitely like put some of this out over on our Substack. Let's go, Chris. He says, I've had a thing happen to me the last 3 days. Been with them. Almost like a DMT trip, but no drugs. I engage with them and they engage back. I saw them all. Are you talking about reptilians, or are you talking about jokers, greys, mantids? Okay. And we've got about I definitely want to hear. It says we have about like maybe 3 more minutes. Chris, can you hang on with us for about 3 minutes so we can finish this? And then I'll switch over here to the camera and we can talk about your experience. Because I've not had encounters with reptilians. Well, I went to school in Los Alamos. We know there's the Dulce deep underground military bases, and we had learned that there was like tunnels in the high school that had connected to the old high school, and that those tunnels had connected to other parts of the city. And so one night, me and a couple of my buddies, the buddy that ironically enough, the buddy that I went to Las Cruces with years later, we had broke into the old school pool, and we had to go through some tunnels to get down there, and it was creepy. There was something else down there. I don't know if it was it could have been other teenagers, could have been, a coyote, it could have been a snake, could have been something. I don't know. We didn't see anything, but we got down there, we're walking around, you can hear just the echolocation of everything, water dripping and whatnot, and you can hear sloshing, something was in there with us. We were in there with something else. So I would be very, very curious to hear about your experiences. Chris, Jump Chris, please tell me. I've not had encounters with mantids. I've not had encounters with greys or Nordics, but I've had encounters with other type of entities. One of my, again, jumping back over here to high school, one of my high school buddies, I remember, because this is right whenever Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind came out, I became increasingly curious with the paranormal. But he had told me this story about how he had woken up in the middle of the night, super random, and he saw a deer in his closet. And I looked at him, and he knew what he said, and he knew that he sounded crazy and that wasn't normal. But he said, yeah, man, it was the weirdest thing. It was just staring at me through my closet, and I don't know what it was. I know I wasn't dreaming, but it was just right there. My closet's not big enough to hold a deer, and I was just so confused because I was lucid, I was conscious. What I had later learned is that that was a screen memory, that something had projected the image of a deer on itself in his mind to get him to think that it was a deer. I had later learned out that he had multiple other, basically, abduction encounters. And so I've not encountered a gray. I've come into contact with people who have. I've not encountered a mantis. I've not encountered a reptilian. I've seen shapeshifters or Nordics, right? So I would be infinitely curious about your experience. Let me just stop talking. I'll play this video, and then we'll get you up here, Chris, and then we'll go from there, brother.
This wins. He also goes on to talk about the origins of humanity, some stuff about the Martian technology, and our biological species and electricity, which reads, everything in our bodies runs on electrical impulses. Our brains operate over a wide range of electrical frequencies shown here. Everything we experience in life is simply the result of electrical activity. To be more precise, everything we experience is the sequence of a series of action potentials occurring in the central nervous system. If our perception occurs due to electrical impulses, it follows that it can be manipulated with the right technology. This is why Martians are able to directly alter our perception. They have the technology. They can trick our brain into visual and auditory hallucinations, smelling, tasting, heart rate fluctuations, erections, and every other CNS event. This provides a full explanation of how they manipulated my penis as described in my story. Read about the science behind an erection here if you're not convinced yet. So as you can see, Tesla was right. Energy, frequency, and vibration allow us to control the world around us. The Martians have known this for eons, and they use it against us. As I said before, they own a massive stock of humans, which they breed and control from birth.
Crazy.
Since they have the technology to control a central nervous system, they can operate their humans like remote-controlled toys. Unfortunately for us wild humans, they can control us too. In his manifesto, he actually has an illustration of these amphibious beings he saw. So yeah, in conclusion, I would say that Kyle is a schizophrenic, and this is an excellent case study. However, I'm not going to dismiss him completely because on a spiritual level, I do believe that there are dark entities here. Kyle seems like a very sensitive person with a high IQ, high levels of imagination. And things just got a little too real. I mean, it is suspicious that the pastor lived after he shot him 6 times. I mean, Kyle actually was trained in the Marine Corps. He knew how to use a gun. All of his shots hit. And for those of you who know guns, you know hollow point rounds expand once you shoot them.
That's crazy.
And they're made to kill. No human is able to survive that many shots. 1 of them hit him in the head. 5 of them hit him in the torso. That is not human, if this report is accurate. And it seems to be so. This pastor was then suddenly elected to a somewhat prominent position in Idaho state government. And you know, maybe at the end of the day, perhaps this guy was protected by God and he's a really good person. I'm going to actually side with Occam's razor and say Kyle was schizophrenic. Like a severe case of it. But the fact that this pastor lived through an anatomically impossible to survive shooting is something that bothers me. So I don't know what that's all about. Either way, it's an interesting story. It was sort of hard for me to get through it just because it's so honestly crazy, and I hate to use that word because it's very dismissive.
It is.
But I think Kyle would even agree, like it's hard to read because it's so out there. But very interesting nonetheless. And I have no doubt that he actually did truly experience all those horrible things. And he wrote that it was like he was tortured even worse than a POW. I have no doubt that he actually felt that.
I'm going to look into this.
And hopefully these days his mind is more at ease. So for any of you who want to read the manifesto, I'm going to provide a link in the description.
Yeah, we're going to post that.
That concludes the story of Kyle Odom.
Yeah, I have never heard of that story. Bottle ice cream. Thanks for dropping that. I had never heard of that. I know we're going to be posting about that. We're going to be doing some more research into that. What part of this story took place over here in Albuquerque, what we can research, and just that's phenomenal. I've never heard of that. Kyle Odom story in 2015, 2016, shooting a pastor that could have been masquerading or a reptilian that was masquerading as a pastor. That is crazy. But I'm not surprised. What I also think is interesting, though, is he said that he had come into contact with the reptilian. I honestly thought it was going to be like a possession type story, but it seems like it was he merged with this entity. He got the second sight. They began to communicate with him, and then he could just, like they live, begin to see them all over the place. Very, very fascinating story. Very, very fascinating story. I've definitely never heard of that, but I mean, it's. They pointed out the sexual thing. That's important because, as I was saying when we were watching the actual video, how many times have we heard about people who have had moments where they can see these entities during coitus, right? Yeah, but Chris, the Native Americans have positive stories of reptilians. They don't want to be seen. Yeah, didn't realize they were visible. Yeah, you're more than welcome to come up and share some of your stories, Chris, or you're more than welcome to chill in the chat, my friend. But we're talking about reptilians. You know, I never thought that David Icke was crazy. Never thought that David Icke was crazy. And that's why when we were watching this video, I made the comment about the Native American Hopi people and how they have a lore of coming into contact with non-human entities, or at least non-human intelligences, or what we're calling them today, that took them underground to survive some of the cataclysms that we discussed earlier in this video. And then once those cataclysms had subsided, they brought humanity back out from up underground, and then they taught them civilization. And if these are things, crypto-terrestrial entities that are able to coexist parallel with us, that are aware of whenever these cyclical catastrophes are coming, they can grow humans, they can clone humans, they can remotely mind control humans, they can teach humans civilization, or at least just enough civilization so that they can do what we described earlier in the space, gather resources and bring them back down to this underground civilization that's there. Pretty crazy. They're scary but make you feel safe somehow. The reptile guys stay in the shadows. Yeah, it seems like whenever we're talking about like reptilians, that there's a hierarchy there as well. That there's like Draco reptilians. There's regular day reptilians, the amphibian type reptilians that we see over there, and then there's like the Draco reptilians, the ones that are like massive. They have wings, right? But it seems like there's for sure a hierarchical structure when looking at them as well. Tell me more, Chris. Like, so are you saying that you've had an experience similar to what Kyle Odom has had, to where you've had ongoing and prolonged communications with these reptilian type entities? And if you can, tell me like what part of the country you're in. Like tell me whatever you can. So I'm like you're more than welcome to come up here and come share your story, or you're welcome to drop it in the chat. But I'm curious. Are you coming into contact with greys? Are you coming into contact with reptilians? Are you coming into contact with mantis-like entities? Right? He says that they still F with me all the time still. I have to tell them to stop sometimes. My guys are tall, almost like they're in suits of armor. Butthole Ice Cream says there isn't too many places a massive person can hide, so if they walk amongst us, it'll be pretty easy to. So you're saying that you've come into contact with all these different types of entities. Chris, jump Chris. Are these waking encounters? Are these psychic encounters? Are these dreamscape visitations? And if you can, tell us which race or which species interacts with you more? Referring to the Draco Reptilians. I think you're right regarding the Draco Reptilians. Butthole ice cream. I think that these are some of the ones that they keep underground because they're too obvious. I think that we are able to see some of the lower level ones, right? They put on either some type of masking technology or they're able to, you know, reptiles keep you safe. Tell me more about this. Tell me why. Tell me why you think that. Because there is like this snake handler, snake charmer, reptilian worship. I'm just like infinitely curious about this. Precisely, they are as big. They are as big as we say, and they don't walk amongst us. The Draco reptilians, like the higher caste types, I think these are the ones that are overseeing like operations and the ones that are underground. I think that they have like lower level disposable entities that they put into positions that can be taken out, like Kyle Odom's priest or other individuals like that. And I also think that the technology works with some of these ones too, because we know they have like liquid crystal technology, projection type technology, right? There's something going on there. They can't fit in the bodies too, or they just wouldn't blend in. Yeah. Jump, Chris, tell us about your Draco reptilian experiences and why it's interesting. You're describing them in like a you're like in a defensive position for the reptilians. This is very interesting. And an experiencer that is actually saying they terrify the bejesus out of me, but they also feel like my bodyguards. Interesting. Have I ever looked into the Men in Black type agencies? Yes. Yes. Yeah, Chris, I'd love to have you jump up over here on the mic and just share some of your encounters if you can. You don't have to, turn the camera on. You can just come up, turn the camera off, hit the mic, and just say, "Brother, this is what I've experienced." But we have just two butthole ice creams comment. We have actually looked into the Men in Black agency for years. And there's that one viral clip too where security cam footage was able to capture those two individuals. And it talks about their mannerisms, experiencers that have come into contact with aliens and more have said that they don't feel human, that their skin looks waxy, right? Like it's like there's no blemishes. Like I've got blemishes, I've got scars. I'm old. But when people see these Men in Black, that there's no blemishes on their face, it looks like it's printed on, right? And their mannerisms are not normal either. That sometimes they look like robotic, or there's like anomalies. They don't get certain kind of nuances in conversation. And so the Men in Black themselves are also interesting, and the agency itself is also strange. Jump Chris says, "I'm shaking texting you. They're here. That dude on TV is a Draco too." Now, when you're saying they're here, have they psychically linked with you? Have they manifested in your location? What is the energy associated with their arrival? Is there hostility with me talking about these things with you? Do they not want you talking about this? Have you put out a psychic SOS and they're responding, coming back? Like, are we in trouble for asking questions? Yeah, it's crazy. I literally have, and just as a little thing, real quick, I'll let you guys know because I've got, spoiler alert, I've got 15 stories or 12 stories that I had curated from user submitted stuff that I was going to read to you guys, but we just got a whole different flow over here with the show, and I'm perfectly all right with it. Since my experience, I'm always able to communicate. Yeah, we're gonna have to get you back up over here on the space, or if you have some time, jump Chris, just like send a super long message into the DMs. I'd love to talk about it. What kind of experience have you had? No, that makes perfect sense. You used your third eye. So we're not talking like physical, three-dimensional. We're talking like astral, an astral type of experience, right then? Because that's what Kyle Odom also said as well, is that he was going through meditation, and while in a meditative state, this entity, this reptilian type entity, appeared to him. So eyes closed, you can see everything. All right, so we're talking about something in the psychoid layer, or in the psychic world, the astral plane. Beautiful. Okay, tell me more then. And were you there for wisdom? Were you there for peace? Were you there while you were in this activated state? What was the intention behind it? And did only one appear to you, or were there multiple entities that were trying to communicate with you? Mm-hmm. Jump Chris says that I believe I was releasing natural DMT. And yes, multiple. This is true. Another thing that took place out here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Please tell me more, Chris, or I'm going to just go on like a quick little jag. Another thing that took place out here in New Mexico, Albuquerque, New Mexico, over at UNM, was the Rick Strausman DMT spirit molecule studies. And in this study, we learned that everybody has DMT within them. Plants have DMT, humans have DMT, dogs have DMT. There's DMT in a lot of different things. And one of the cool things that Rick Strausman discovered when putting people under with DMT is that they would come into contact with gray aliens. And it was a controlled experiment. They had specific doses, durations, and things like that. And it didn't matter the type of person, but they would put them under, and to a certain degree, when they reached a threshold, they would come into contact with either jester-like entities, as Chris is describing, or even some of these gray-like entities that are there as well. But jumping back into Chris's experiences, or his response to releasing natural DMT, he said he started an alcoholic withdrawal that turned out as a crazy 3 days, and now I'm unlocked. And are you working, now that you're unlocked, are you working with this awareness? Is it a hindrance? Is it augmenting you? Is it a benefit? Is it a detriment? Now that you're unlocked, describe that to me. You just accept it? And so would you consider yourself like a psychic, or would you consider yourself like a medium, or anything like that, or would you just say that you yourself are now unlocked and you can perceive these things differently now, or you can just perceive them entirely? I can go in a pitch black room and connect. And have you ever have you ever have you ever been possessed? Have you ever been possessed? Have you ever invoked an entity or a spirit or anything like that? Or would you just consider that yourself is now yourself is open and you can receive sometimes these feedbacks whenever people are or whenever entities are trying to connect? Third eye or something, man. I understand. Thanks for liking the live, Vouch. We're just talking about strange things, paranormal encounters, supernatural things. Right now, we are currently talking to Jumped Up Chris, who is saying that he's unlocked, he's opened, he had an experience, and now he's come into contact with multiple entities, some being reptilians, some being mantids, some being grays. He says, I literally see in the dark with eyes closed. You know what's so crazy is we just put out a post on our TikTok from the Acid for Squares podcast, where, what is her name? Let me see right here. Dahlia Burgoyne talking about mind sight. And in that clip, she's got an eye patch on each eye. She's wrapped up. She has like a night mask as well, and then goggles, and then taped over. And she's totally blacked out. She too can see without in the dark. She can see without sight. And so in this clip, the full clip that we played on the show, the hosts are holding up various cards, and she's able to pull that information up as rapidly as they pull it up. She's able to see the cards while her eyes are taped up and blind. This is the mind sight. This is another one of those type of, not even superpowers, but these type of features that humanity has that is just being suppressed. Jump Chris says that the mantis are the doctors that worked on me and fixed my health. No joke. I'm not that good. You know, it's interesting you say the mantis beings are the doctors, because when you look into the history and the lore of things like alien abduction, people talk about the mantis beings being present during these abductions. And while some of the gray aliens are working on the humans, they talk about having light rods inserted inside of them, like surgical type of maneuvers, surgical type of things taking place, but it taking place like with light. And so it's interesting that you're saying that the mantids or the mantis beings who were spotted during these alien abduction encounters, who were caught sometimes operating on these type of people, these abductees, are the doctors. He says that they are the doctors in this realm. Interesting. So then I've got to ask the question: So then, are the reptilians are the defenders? The mantists are like the doctors. What are the grays in that aspect then? Because I'm seeing them as like an organic robotoid or some type of synthetic biological entity. Like they don't have a divine sentience. Jump Chris says that I was close to death and now I'm a medical miracle. Do you think some of that had to do with the DMT? Many people have talked about that as well. Graham Hancock talked about DMT revealing to him that he needed to get off of marijuana. Mike Tyson has also revealed that DMT helped him quit some of his bad habits. Do you think that some of your medical reversal that took place was because of your consumption of DMT? and then your encounter with these type of entities? They mixed up something and injected me. Fascinating. Okay, again, this is where we're just bleeding into the abduction phenomenon. Something that was discussed back in like the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s is the implant aspect of the alien abduction phenomenon. Like, what is this about? Um, you're talking about an implant to a degree, whether it's physical or metaphysical or spiritual. He says they put an object in my ear so I could communicate. Interesting. Some people have reported that it's in their like nasal cavity where they get these objects inserted. You're saying it was in your ear. Can you feel it today? Is this a physical object? Because you've got people like not Greer. I'm trying to think of like who the John. No, it's not John Mack. I'm trying to think of like who the surgeon was that got popularized for removing implants. It's a big thing. Left ear, no, I can't feel. Interesting. Interesting. And so, is there what I like that you're discussing is that there is like an ongoing communication interface. Is there does a sense or anything like that happen? Hey, thank you for joining Terraful EDM. Glad that you're joining us from Romania, my friend. We are talking about strange, paranormal, and weird things. Right now, Jump Jump Chris is telling us that he is not even a sensitive or a psychic, but that he has had multiple experiences with these otherworldly beings. And we're just getting information about his experience, about his experiences, his communications with these entities, and even things like that. So if you do have a story, a paranormal story, a supernatural experience, or an encounter with the divine, please just jump up over here. You're more than welcome to share your story, and we're going to talk about it. We just got done going over Kyle Odom's 2015 experience with reptilians. Butthole Ice Cream shared this information that I had no knowledge of, and it blew my mind. We watched like a whole little report on it. It was crazy. I'm going to go make a post about it and write an article about it because he mentioned Albuquerque. He mentioned a lot of interesting features about the reptilians, their characteristics, their mentality, some of their goals, and things like this. And while talking about that, we started communicating with Jump Jump Chris, who was also saying that he had experiences with reptilians and this other host or these other gallery of entities. So if you have had experiences as well, please drop them in the chat or drop them in the DMs or jump up here and share them as well. But we are trying to figure out what's going on here. And just like the different type of hierarchies, right? Jump Chris was talking about how he had an experience with a mantis-like entity, and he believes that they are the doctors of this realm. And I had backed this up by saying that when we look at some of the alien abduction phenomenon type stuff, that they are for sure pictured in this hierarchical, authoritative position while beings are working on humans. So glad to have you. Feel free to hang out, pull up a chair. Ironically enough, I said we were going to go from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. We've got about 5 more minutes, but the conversation is so great, I think we can go a little bit over. So thank you for joining, my friend. Ooh, you got to tell us more about that. He said, Terraful EDM says that my first memory is how I came in my body and my mother's tomb through the portal. Oh, you got to tell us more about that. Sounds like you're talking about the waiting room or the room before life. Oh, you got to tell us more about that. Jumping back to Jump Chris, he says, I was able to talk to them and the normal people and the normal person with it. It says, left ear, no, I can't feel. No one will look just because I was able to talk to them and the normal person with it. Washington State, buddy. Yeah, they seem pretty. They seem to be pretty high up in the hierarchy. Yeah, absolutely. I think that there is a for sure. That the same way that we know that there is a kingdom in heaven, a hierarchy in heaven, I think that there is an occult, cryptid, paranormal hierarchy, and that's part of what disclosure is saying that all of this stuff is real. Some of it we know what to deal with, some of it we don't. Let's have a broader discussion about all of this. But Terraful says that I have a live memory about this. Very well. There was a call, and I joined here. I remember going through the white portal, and after that, my mind got connected to my human body mind. Interesting. There was a call. Many people report essentially having to accept the mission of incarnation. Did you have any? We're talking to Terraful instead of Jump Chris now. Did you have any recollections of life before life? Like you're saying that there was a call. Like, do you have like a memory of the location or anything like that, or is it just like a series of events to where it's like you're conscious, you recognize an energetic signal, the call, and you accept it, and then the next waking thought is incarnation? Because I've had out of body experiences similar to that, and I've had dreams of the world before life, but I don't remember incarnation, so to speak. Terraful says that no, some people told me I have a gold aura and I am here to change the world when the Antichrist will arise. I believe that. All my life I've had an interest in history, aliens, the Illuminati, and all of them. Jump Chris says that I didn't want to say anything about this, but they are very sexually active for some reason. Yes. Well, I tell you what, Terraful, you will find friends and family here. Thank you very much for that heart, my friend. We've got 16 plus seasons where we've been trying to track this type of stuff. This is my life. I live in this world because I'm just infinitely curious about the strange things of this universe and what we think of as reality. And so, just to Jump Chris's comment about these entities having a hypersexualized nature, that is in such alignment with what we're talking about, even whenever you look at things like the Bible, and angels transgressing, coming from their first estate, fathering the Nephilim, fathering the giants. So we have a long history of just like otherworldly entities trying to commingle with us, trying to merge with us. And so when you talk about, them having a hypersexualized nature, I made the comment while we were watching the video that these entities, they like to create these hybrid offsprings. And many of the shape-shifting stories we hear come from people who are having these type of sexual encounters, and they glitch, they schism, and they're briefly seen. Jumping back over here to Terraful. Terraful says that my second memory is from when I was 3. A dark, evil energy is trying to entry in me. I see it coming up with speed, and I jump in the bed, and the dark energy goes under the bed and disappears. This is my second memory. Interesting. Tell us more. At 3. And it's crazy that you have this like elephant-like style memory, because my older brother has that, to where it's just like he can recall everything. One of the encounters I had when I was younger, and I think I've told this story on the show, and I'll tell it till I'm in the grave, is I was watching Dragon Ball Z. I had to have been spending like maybe like seventh, eighth grade, and I'm in the front room. I'm watching Dragon Ball Z. I'm drawing, and then I get a sense all of a sudden to look up, and I look up. I look to the left. I'm like in the kitchen. The TV's right here. Or I'm on the floor. Table's right here. TV's right there. I'm drawing. To my left is like the archway leading into the kitchen. And then from the kitchen, there's another archway that leads into the dining room. And then my parents' room are just south of that. So I'm sitting here at the table. I'm drawing. I'm coloring. And then I get a sense. And I look to the left. And then in slow motion, I see like hands, fingers come out of the arch. One first. And then another set higher up. And then slowly I see like a pair of red eyes and just something that's blacker than black, darker than dark, staring at me from my parents' room. And I'm caught in like a tractor beam like trance as this thing is just staring at me from my parents' room. And I'm frozen in fear as we're locking eyes. And the same creepy way that it just like slowly picked its head out, it slowly crept its head back into my parents' room. And I'm so freaked out that I book it. I get up, I run straight into my parents' room where this thing was. They can tell you this story to this day. I freak out. I jump in their bed. I'm like, oh my God, there's this black thing with red eyes and long claws in your room. Help me. But I'm in there. I'm like in the room with them. But I'm so terrified that I like don't even think like that. I'm just like, this scared the bejesus out of me. Please keep me safe. And we still talk about that experience to this day. And so that was the only time that I had seen like a dark energy in that house. And this was the same house too, where I told in this stream earlier, where I just went into the bathroom one day, right? I had to be like 15, 16 or something, like freshman or sophomore year, high school. I go in the bathroom and I wash my face real quick. I look up and I just see this bald-headed, blue-faced man staring at me. So that's why I'm like, that whole house, I had a lot of strange things happen to me that put me on this path that I'm still on today. So to hear that at 3 years old, Terraful's saying that I had an encounter with a dark energy, it tried to come after me, and then it hid itself under bed. That's not an anomalous story. And I share with him. Let me get caught up on comments. Sorry, guys, I got distracted with the stories there. This is my second memory. Says Terraful, guys mainly. Interesting. Jump Chris says that these reptilian entities are hypersexual entities with guys mainly. And maybe that's a dominance type thing. Maybe it's like a predatory type dominance thing. And it's interesting you say that because we were just talking about Kyle Odom, who is a guy, talking about what they were doing to him sexually, his prostate, and things of this nature. And so, very interesting. What's also, and it's so crazy too, because we just keep coming back to this like sexual component, man. It's like, is this the Kundalini spirit? Are these people? Can these entities see in the astral plane? Right? Do they see us as some type of source to where they can take our sacral energy? Right? Definitely requires a little bit more research. Let's look into what Terraful EDM is saying. Butthole Ice Cream chimed in saying, have you looked into the battles waged in underground cities in LA against reptiles? It was printed in the newspaper, the early 1900s, or I think the late 1800s. Yes, we actually have a post about that let me pull this up real quick and then I'll jump over here to Terraful's comments. We actually have a post about that on our TikTok because he's absolutely right. Butthole ice cream, it was printed in the paper. Let me pull this up. Boom, right there. We put it up, 520 it says, but it features this paper from the LA Times, 1934, where it talks about finding a reptilian city under Los Angeles when excavating. Let me read a little bit of the story, and then we'll jump over here to the comments from Terraful. Genuinely appreciating you guys being here. But it says, and this is the post over here on our TikTok page that you guys can go read. It says, in January of 1934, the Los Angeles Times published a front page story that captured the city's imagination. Mining engineer G. Warren Shuffle claimed to have discovered evidence of an ancient underground, quote, catacomb city built by the lizard people beneath Fort Moore Hill in downtown Los Angeles. According to Shuffle, this advanced civilization, described in Hopi legends as a race of highly intelligent beings. See, we just keep coming back to the Hopi, bro. The Hopi have this. That's what I'm telling you. That's what I said. That the Hopi are these ant people, these reptilians, that they live underground and they take people underground and they bring new ones up. That these highly intelligent beings had fled a massive meteor-induced fire catastrophe thousands of years earlier. They tunneled deep into the earth using unknown chemical methods, creating a vast network of rooms and vaults filled with gold tablets recording their history and scientific knowledge. Shuffle said that the city housed about 1,000 families and featured superior technology. Armed with custom radio X-ray technology devices he invented to detect minerals in tunnels, Shuffle secured a permit and sank a shaft about 250 feet deep on the old Banning property near North Hill Street. He produced a detailed map outlining the supposed labyrinth beneath the streets. Again, this is a whole story that you guys can go research. Happened in like the 1930s. Because this is how long these things have been here. Let me get caught up on some of these comments and then we'll jump back into this. Terraful says that my level of consciousness was God level before age 7. At 7, my consciousness goes to sleep and the human mind took the control over my body. I remember that very well. I remember a lot of things from being under 7. I am 33 now. My human mind got awake when I was 21 years old. My mind clicked and I got aware about existence. Bro, I'm digging, I am genuinely digging where you're coming from, Terraful. And I'm glad that you're able to document the times. Because it's like, we do come online at different points in time. Girls do for sure mature differently than boys. And a lot of the psychic and paranormal activity that children experience are around that like 8 to 14 time frame. And from like 14 on, we just kind of like get cut off. And then something happens later on in our life when we slow down and we mature to where different senses begin to come on. So you're saying that you remember a lot of things before 7. Your human mind kind of came online when you were 21. And we're 33 now, cycling back, looking at, because I'm 34 myself, cycling back, looking at all of these different type of experiences. So they are everything and everywhere. Your eyes are closed. You can't see. We have an all-star lineup today, guys. Genuinely appreciate you for taking some time out of your day just to come spend some time with me. Jump Chris says, bro, I had people I know that were in another dimension. He says that I'm pretty sure I'm in the bloodline. I'm already 2% of the world. Terraful says that I was like a bot from 7 to 21. And Jump Chris says, dude, the world is turning gay. You're not wrong there. To both of your points. Let me see if I can try to like weave these together because you're absolutely both right. I was watching this video over here on YouTube to where it's like swag is code for secretly we are gay. You got all these people over here trying to seem like, And like Alex Jones was right. They are turning the frogs gay, which means they're turning us gay. And just the other week on the show, I had talked about how they're flushing birth control in major cities, so we don't have to worry about atrazine turning the freaking frog gay. We now have birth control in the water, so the gender bending chemicals are at work. But to your point about the world being gay and them trying to sexually dominate us in order to, if anything, assert their bloodline um, and eradicate humanity in another way. Like, that's kind of what it is. You know, it's like I made that comment when I was on somebody else's TikTok space when talking about the Rainbow Mafia. It's like that's why they promote it for you, because it destroys your bloodline, and then you don't become like a threat to them. No, that's why they don't want straight heterosexual normal people procreating and having kids. They want people that are a part of that, you know, persuasion, because they can be dominated and controlled and then taken over subsequently. But yes, no, for sure, it's a dominance thing. It's a spiritual thing. It's not a gender sexual thing. It's a power thing for these people. You see, if they can dominate you spiritually, then physically they can dominate you. And you have to think about the type of energy that you exude whenever you've been captured, whenever you've been dominated. And so that's why I'm looking at it through that kind of psycho-emotional lens. Do they see us as a food source? Do they see us as like an energetic source? And then when we were looking at Kyle Odom's story at the beginning, he told us that the meditation led to a type of phase locking or phase interfacing. And I'm sure we've all seen that infamous photo of somebody being overshadowed by a reptilian. And then where do they plug in? Where does the possession take place? Does it take place in the heart chakra? Does it take place in the belly? Or does it take place down there? So, and they've also said too that our guts are our second brain. So we have to look at what these things are, how we're interfacing with them, what the intentions are, and what the nature of the relationship is. You see? Yeah, bro, down there. Down there, butthole. Oh my goodness. Um, yes. Enough of the rainbow stuff. I didn't even want to say anything. Yes, you're absolutely correct. It's just something that was really weird. Says Jump Jump Chris. I didn't like it. That's how it felt. Like they wanted my manhood. You know, and again, if we're looking into the story from Kyle Odom, everything that was in his manifesto, that's essentially what you're describing. That they were through promiscuous means trying to control him. And for somebody like me, I'm looking at this and hearing this type of dialogue, and for some reason my mind is being called towards Aleister Crowley, ritualistic, tantric sex magic, and how do as thou wilt shall be the whole of the law, and how you have, you know, Thelema, OTO, all of these different occult sects that pop up out of nowhere that primarily utilize coitus and intercourse and sex as a form of magic. So it's interesting that we're hovering around this aspect of it. You see, that there is like a sexual, occult, and otherworldly component associated with these type of entities and this type of research, and that whenever we do mate, have coitus, intercourse, or relations with people, that we give off an energy, right? That can be either vamped or captured. So really, really disturbing trends, but I think we're floating around something. And I'll say this before I scroll up on your guys' comments. Like again, I keep going back to the Bible, to where it's not sexual, it's procreation, it's domination, and if you look at it from that type of dominating thought process, The fallen angels fell from heaven, created their own race of men that was designed to overtake humanity. And that's what the whole Bible is about, eradicating this foreign bloodline that has come here, getting rid of the natural, quote, wild humans, as put forth by Kyle Odom. And so it's just wild because we keep getting multiple stories throughout history of these like different type of incursions from these entities commingling with humanity. But let's see what you guys are saying over here in the comments as we try to stay away from, or as we try to navigate away from the Rainbow Mafia and some of their adventures. How humanity will react when Jesus Christ reveals himself. I'll definitely answer that one. Jump Chris says they tried to turn me. It didn't work. I was yelling at them in my backyard, bad words. My wife came out and was like, "What the F?" Butthole Ice Cream asks, have you guys seen the movie Eyes Wide Shut by Stanley Kubrick? It's a great movie featuring Tom Cruise. I forget who the leading female actor is. It's a great movie. An introduction to all of this. I've never told anyone that I'm embarrassing. Bro, I think, and that's one of the reasons why they do it, if you want the honest to God truth. I think that because it is as you described in this space, it is a spiritual capturing of somebody's manhood. And in a time frame where we are inundated with sexually promiscuous stuff, it does its own mind games on you. So I can understand why you're like, I don't want to talk about this, even if it's happening, because it's embarrassing. How do you think Kyle Odom felt literally talking about how these people are stimulating his area down there, as well as his prostate, and this is also done as a method to distract you, right? Like, there is a certain spiritual awareness, and I'm sure somebody here can attest to this. If you're able to overcome the flesh, like when you're having like an experience, if you're able to overcome the flesh and control yourself, there's something that happens through your spine and your body as that energy like travels up, right? What these people are doing is they're stimulating it and they're taking it, right? It doesn't go through our body to like recharge us. If it is like a Kundalini type spirit energy that just like goes through us and activates things, we're talking about entities that know we have this kind of spiritual activation technique, and they literally take it from us. Like they stimulate you, they activate it, they see that it's rising, it reaches a certain point, and they take it. And they convert it to a fear energy and they eat it. Something like Monsters Inc. So I could see why you would think that it is something embarrassing, because they've got it down to a science to where they where they harvest us. They take our essence sexually. And so you do feel like, not emasculated, but drained. It's like I'll say this and I'll jump back into it. I was hearing some nerd speak about, it's like one sperm is like a kilobyte of data, and then one ejaculation period is like 1 terabyte of data being downloaded. So it's like one little sperm is just like this little grain. And then whenever you go down or whenever you complete your cycle, so to speak, when you complete, you're downloading something that's got like over 500 plus gigabytes worth of space with one single ejaculation. And so this is just nerd speak for how these people have been able to quantify our procreative energy. Imagine the psychic energy that is off put by that, and that ties into what Terraful is saying as well. That's why I asked the question about them experiencing the world before the world, right? There's an energy that comes through. We have to agree, and then we're given the bodies. But if we have entities that know about this whole soul reincarnation process, the energetic things that reside inside of us, they can stimulate this to where they can extract it. we're dealing with people that know this is a soul reincarnation facility, and they're basically picking us off, and they figured out through eons the best way to keep it secret. So, no, brother, I appreciate you sharing that with us here. Jump, Chris. I appreciate you sharing something that you thought was embarrassing, because it's par for the course. This explains so much and so many different things. So you're not alone, is what I'm trying to say. Now, to what Terraful is saying regarding how will humanity react whenever Jesus reveals himself, I think that right now we're in Albert Pike's plan, Illuminati plan for 3 world wars. And I think the first person they roll out as the savior will be the Antichrist. He will depict himself as if he is Jesus Christ, and many will be deceived and they will go along with him. And this is all put forth in the Bible. But I think whenever the actual Jesus steps on the stage, he's not going to come back with miracles and wonder and all this stuff that people expect. He's going to come back angry, and he's going to come back collecting his bride, and he's going to kick butt, save people, get out of here. He's not here to rule this, if you want my honest to God thought. And that goes into like a deeper eschatological talk and deeper discussion when looking at Christianity. But I think initially they will reject Jesus Christ because it won't be the real Jesus. But this will lead people to actually dig into the Bible. And then the following Christ that does come up will be the real Christ. And he's not going to come back trying to do anything of our time. He's going to come back, collect people. That's called the great harpazo, the great catching away, right? We have to go through tribulation. We'll be caught up and taken away. But the first one will cause the tribulation. Let me get caught up over here on some of you guys' amazing comments. And again, thank you guys for spending some time. I'm going to try to do this, like I say, every Sunday, but it might end up being like every other evening, right? I think that every week is good, but I think because of the nature of TikTok and social media, I will try to find a way to do this like every evening, maybe later on in the afternoon and evening, so people can come up here and share stories, because this is the whole reason why I'm on social media. Politics is a cover. I don't care about that stuff. I care about diving deep into just like what is going on with humanity, what is going on with the nature of reality, what is going on with the other side of reality, and can other people feel what is happening right now? The energies, the psychic energies, these human resonances, can they feel like what is happening? Let's have a conversation about it. But let me get caught up over here in your guys' comments. Again, Jump Chris, I appreciate you for sharing that story with us, my friend. It's not I'm sorry you feel it's embarrassing. You're not alone. And thanks to Butthole Ice Cream's story, we were able to talk about Kyle Odom, who experienced something similar as you. So you're not alone. This is a part of these people's MO, what they do. And if you want something to look into, my friend, go look into targeted individuals, things like the Havana syndrome, remote mind control, right? These are other individuals who have been targeted either by nefarious elements of our government or non-human entities, and have had other things happen to them. He says they're going to be mad at me for talking about this. Well, tell them I put you up to it. Tell them I put you up to it, and I'm over here in Albuquerque, where apparently they have operatives. So, sorry, Jump Chris just felt comfortable sharing things. This is what we're doing over here. They're making us use the porn chakra. Yes, absolutely. It's so crazy how this is a component of all of these things, that we're somehow talking about like the sexual aspect of the paranormal, and that there is like a connection here. I think that's so crazy because, again, it makes me think of Aleister Crowley. ritualistic tantric sex magic to where people are opening up portals and interfacing with the other side and making pacts. It's like I would whenever Russ Dizdar was still alive, God rest his soul. Whenever Russ Dizdar was still alive, I would watch a lot of his presentations. I would listen to Shadow the Darkness radio. I gobbled his stuff up because he was like a religious demonologist that was battling Satanists and rescuing children and delivering people from demons. And I was like, this is where I want to go. And I was just like so on fire for his work. And unfortunately, he got taken way too soon to go be with the Lord. But in his work, when rescuing children and coming into contact with people who are victims of SRA, satanic ritual abuse, again, in rescuing children, breaking bloodlines and stuff like that, he would talk about the breeders. He would talk about how there is a certain demographic of people within the occult hierarchy that are breeders, that are just literally in the structure, in the system, to get pregnant and produce children. And these children would be used for, rituals. I'll just go ahead and say that so I don't get too much in trouble, but just rituals. And one of the rituals was the demonization of the fetus. And in this ritual, they talked about how these Satanists and these occultists would use these breeders, they would give birth, they would call in and invoke these spirits so that they could go inside the baby. And some of these spirits, they were familial spirits, meaning they were passed down from grandpa to pop, and from pop to son, and now from son to grandson. These are familial spirits that have been passed down multi-generationally and now imbued inside of different people. And so when we're talking about, sex, porn, chakras, ritualistic tantric sex magic and things like this is a real component of the paranormal that people don't even talk about or even are aware of. And so getting deeper even into that, right? And I'll say this and I'll jump back over here to your guys' comments. These people who were demonized fetuses now made alive, or now grown. These are people that eventually went on to become like MK Ultra mind control people, NPCs or what have you. They would have subalter personalities. They would have programs written inside of them to where they could just switch. They could code switch. They'd be an assassin. They'd be a stripper. They could speak multiple different languages, what they call the Twilight language, right? And this is all stuff that you can look at. This is all stuff that you can go research. Russ Dizdar, before he went to go be with the Lord, he data dumped this because this is the world that he was in. He was working with law enforcement. He was working with churches. He was working with people that were survivors of this, because this is a whole thing. And so I just, I have the utmost respect for his work and how it has impacted me today, because I can sit here and I can have these kind of conversations looking into this and understand that people are unfortunately victims of this dark occult cult operating in the background. But jeepers, man, let me read a couple more of these comments. I need to stop talking because you guys are the show. They'll get me back at me tonight. Yes, we don't die. If they get back at you tonight, just shoot me a DM, Chris. I'll shoot you a follow too, my friend. Yep, see, follow back. Boom. I love you. I sent you the best wishes. I'm gonna follow you back too, Terraful. Thank you, my friend. Remember only this always. Do not fear never. Jesus is here. Once the superintelligence will install himself on a body and run the world, Jesus will reveal himself and the war will be over. Absolutely. I actually thank you for coming, Terraful. Yeah, see you in a couple days, butthole. Yeah, no, I think that is it precisely, Terraful. I think that is a very succinct and poignant way to put it. The Antichrist will, the beast will give itself a body. And it, as we see, is happening right now. We see them creating the beast style system. And there's not much, we can't stop it. I'll be 1,000% honest with you. We can't stop it. It's supposed to come in here. It will subject people. And people will have a choice. You either take the mark or you find the mountains. But I thoroughly believe that. I think that the superintelligence will create a body. It will try to subdue all of mankind, and to free us, Christ will come back and just destroy this whole system. It's just how it has to work, because we see where this is going, and and I'm glad you're saying that too now, Terraful, as we're having this conversation, specifically when talking about the paranormal, because these people are trying to hack what I call the psychoid layer. They are trying to create a permanent forever. When we go to sleep, we are able to return home. This is one of the reasons why they want to put a chip in your brain. They want to disconnect you from God. They want to remove spirituality. This is why they want to put you in the metaverse and all this type of stuff. They want you focused on their false reality that's creating. They don't want us creating the world that we're supposed to create, where we can get these downloads. They want us in this fake system that they control, where they can give us signs and manipulate all this type of stuff. God is reaching out right now to every single human, and he's wanting people to understand that this is happening. But they are doing everything they can to keep us distracted and disconnected. And once they get that chip in your brain, once they get you in the metaverse, then they're able to put you to sleep at a completely different level and just disconnect you. That's what this all boils down to. Thank you for coming, Terraful. I love you, and I wish you the best as well, my friend. Jump Chris says, do the DMT experience. It will get you there. And now we've got Butthole Ice Cream saying, bro, I'm going to go get something to eat. But don't forget, I sent you another YouTube bed in the DM. Peace, man. Peace, brother. Maybe that's a sign. We've been here for almost 2.5 hours so far. Maybe that might be a sign to let you guys go and enjoy. Yeah, we will speak another time, Terraful. Thank you for joining, my friend. I gave you a follow, and I will for sure be in your DMs. This might be a sign to go ahead and wrap up the show, let you guys go about your day, and let other folks get back to doing what they're doing. This has been a phenomenal transmission so far. I genuinely appreciate you guys for stopping through and sharing some of your experiences. A lot of stuff to look into, and a lot more posts coming too. So let me go ahead and start sunsetting the space, and then I will let you guys go. We're going to be uploading this to our feeds, so to Patreon, Substack, YouTube, Rumble, Speaker. You'll get it everywhere. We'll even do the video version too. That's why I had to fix up the display so it didn't look all weird like it did with the last one. But we will be uploading this to our feeds so you guys can get access to it. We won't put it behind like a paywall. That's not what it's for. This is for simply discussion purposes, conversation purposes. I would love to have had anybody come up and share their stories. I understand this stuff is kind of strange and wild, and people feel a little bit more sensitive talking about it in the chat. I'm all right with that. It's fun trying to juggle the conversations as we speed through things. And I think that as we grow and we have more people join us, it'll be an even more fantastic discussion. But we've already talked about a number of fantastic things here as is. What I'm going to do, like I said, is I'm going to grab this, rip it, get the video, get the audio, put it out on our feeds. I honestly, like I told you guys, I probably should have said this at the start. I had like 12 different stories pulled aside where I was going to talk about all these paranormal things with you guys because that's the kind of background that I come from. Prepare the information, discuss it, present it. That's it. What I like about TikTok is it's encouraging this engagement, this feedback to where I can talk with you guys and we can communicate and we can have this like free flowing conversation. And so I still have these full 12 stories ready to go. Ready. Maybe I'll put them as like a downloadable PDF on Substack that you guys can go read yourself, and I'll share them in like a future space. But that's how my style has been: is prepare the information, jump up here, and read it to you guys. I genuinely appreciate you people coming in and explaining this type of stuff and having the kind of conversations. That makes it so much easier. So we'll do this again. I'll put a post out. For now, just expect every Sunday, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. I know we went a little bit over. That's how it should be. We'll be over here on TikTok, taking stories, taking calls, taking requests to talk about this type of stuff. I'll put the link that Butthole Ice Cream sent to us for the Kyle Odom reptilian story. I'll attach that with this video or this episode so you guys can go listen to it. Really, really phenomenal stuff. And I think we touched on a couple great points here. I'm going to throw this into my AI, get the transcript, and do a little bit of reading myself. Really, really great stuff. But I think that's going to do it for us over here. We will, like a couple minutes over. I'm all right with that. It's normally 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Fantastic conversations, great guests, great comments, and great topics. But genuinely appreciate you all for taking the time to join us here. We will be here again next week, Lord willing, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, talking about these things and more. If you guys have any questions, feel free to DM me. Feel free to send me a message. Other than that, it's going to do it for us over here. I want to say thank you guys. Stay vigilant, expose lies, and share truth. This is Noisera, Freedom Faction.